Hi everyone, welcome back from the break. We're in the final mile here, pretty close to being done for today. And then we have a really nice networking opportunity, or you can go outside and buy some cool crypto art, or you can go on a crypto hunt and win actual Ethereum. You can win, or Ether, actual Ether. You can win some of the art itself, not this art, the ones outside. And you can also win a physical representation of a token, and they like 3D printed it, so that's pretty cool too. To my right I have Mislav Javor, and he's currently living in Zagreb, and he's going to tell us all about meta transactions, and his favorite token is DAI. That's what he says. So some guys in the back there really like that. Yeah. So please welcome Mislav. Thanks.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm going to be talking about transaction relaying. Just to preface this a little bit, I don't know all that much about transaction relaying. I know just enough to hold a presentation about it. But what I do know is that I desperately need it. I'm a CEO of a small startup here in Croatia, and we're doing energy cooperatives. We're solving issues for energy cooperatives. Around 90% of our platform is classical software, and we have around 10% which is blockchain based. So this implies that our user base is not very educated in blockchain. Most of them, I believe, will never make a blockchain transaction in their life because we target the most general population possible. But we still want to use all the benefits of the blockchain. So we wanted to come up with the idea how to do it. And we came across several problems. One of the biggest problems, and I'm sorry for this, not very famous for my slide editing, but basically, the big issue, user-friendliness. So blockchain currently in this form is very, very user-unfriendly. We always talk like software developers, MetaMask is user-friendly. What you just click and there's just sign, send, it's just 3 clicks and it's done. But having to use a third-party application or a proxy installed on your computer, having to own 2 tokens, and this is something we will get much more into, having to own the token you are using and Ether or some other token which your blockchain is running on, it's not user-friendly for people. Let's imagine, I always like to have this example. Imagine if when you went to the bank and you want to pay for, I want to buy bread, and every time you buy bread, you have to give 10% of the price in the stock of the bank you are buying, you have your credit card in. So if I say, some bank A, and I have to pay 10 euros of my purchase and then 0.5 euros of some company stock. That's just not acceptable in this day and age when users expect that they will just, swipe the card and everything will be done. So how can we solve this issue? Because one of the things that blockchain needs to have is decentralization, and we don't want to risk that. So there are a lot of issues that solve this and just, get centralized. If you ever used Coinbase or some other centralized exchanges, you know that you don't even have to do a blockchain transaction. Never, you just send from one Coinbase account to another, and you don't even see the blockchain, don't hear about it. But then they might as well be running an SQL database, which they are. They aren't actually transacting your ethers or bitcoins or whatever they support these days. So how do we solve this? So the big issue is how do we solve this, and we have this issue in our company. So one of the things we came across it, the idea came to us sort of semi-independently, but then as we started discovering it, we found out that the thing was already in motion, that some people were already doing it, and that it's obviously going to be a big thing in the future. So it's transaction relaying. They've called it meta transactions, which is the fancier name for transaction relaying, but basically it's extremely simple, and there's not much to tell about it, to talk about it in the terms of how do you explain it to users. You have your transactions, you're the sender of the transaction, you sign it with your private key. So you sign it with your private key, it means I approve this transaction. This transaction will happen and I approved it. You then send it to somebody else, the signed transaction, and I think you guys here know, but I usually say this, that they can't get your private key from the signed transaction, otherwise blockchain will work, because that's usually one of the questions when I explain it. And then you send it to somebody who's a relay. Those people who are relays, they will basically take your transaction and put it on the blockchain. They sign it again with their key when they're putting it on the blockchain. But in my smart contract, I can verify that you also signed this transaction. So I'm able to verify it. So if you've ever done a smart contract, you will know you have like the check if message.sender is this or that. Well, here you can just replace it with a check, require that the signature, the hash of the parameters are signed with the private key of this user, and then the user can move funds from ERC20 tokens, they can do this, they can do that, and the relay will pay the gas. So why is this important? Because gas on Ethereum is paid in Ether. And then if I'm a user and I have, let's say, well, I will use the example since it really is my favorite token currently. If we have some DAI, let's say if I have 100 DAI and I want to send it to somebody, and I send 50 DAI, and I have to pay the transaction fee because nobody on the blockchain is going to do it for free. So what do I do here? Well, I basically pay 50 DAI. Well, I sign a transaction where I pay 50 DAI to the person who is receiving, and I pay, let's say, 2 or 3 DAI to the person who is doing the relaying. The relayer verifies that my transaction contains both the transaction fee for them and the recipient DAI, and then they sign it and send it to the blockchain. The implementation of this, I've seen a couple of versions. I'm not sure, and this is why I prefaced it, I'm not sure which one is the best currently, so if you want to ask me about the technical implementations, I can't help really there, but what I know basically is that it seems to me very obvious that this will be the way people use blockchain in 3, 5, 10 years, because it just seems reasonable that people don't want to have 2 tokens. If you're spending DAI, you want to have DAI. If I'm spending Kuna, I don't want to have Kuna and Euro because I'm spending it and I want to spend only that. So one of the things we came across for this is the use cases for transaction relaying. So basically you could have a specialized company doing just transaction relaying. So what would this mean? This would mean that you're a relay, you accept some transaction fees, you cover the gas cost, but then you take a little bit for yourself. So you're basically doing it for profit. But what else you could do if you build your own dApp and you have an ERC20 or ERC721 token or anything else or whatever you do, you could make a relay, run it at break-even cost. So you cover your gas cost that you pay to Ethereum, you cover your servers or whatever, or even you lose a little bit of money. You could do that. Why? To increase onboarding into your application. So one of the most difficult things for blockchain applications or dApps is to get users. And I believe every one of you here who has done and launched a blockchain application can say with certainty that the conversion rate for people who visit your page to people who start using your product is extremely low. Usually those rates are very low, like with classical websites, but this is just beyond low. It's just every 500th or 1,000th user even considers using your app. So basically we can do this where they will just have to. So I'm going to go into a killer case for me, but we are generally reducing the complexity of onboarding people into applications and reducing the complexity of using the applications. So now I had this like the feeless relays. Beyond rhyming, I don't think there's going to be much there because if you don't take any fees, you would basically lose a lot of money the more your application works. But I can see it as a tool for early stage like onboarding. We need to get this up and running and do it then in a week or 2 or a month. We will take the costs, all the gas costs of our users. So yeah, this preserves decentralization because basically nobody can do anything without you signing the transaction. Where it could hurt decentralization is if you're a user who doesn't know how to send your own transaction to the blockchain, because every time you have a relay, there's nothing stopping you from being your own relay or not using the relay at all. So basically, if all the relays disappear, the smart contracts can still be used. It doesn't affect them in any meaningful way. So basically, the only way I see this affecting decentralization is having a bunch of people who don't know how to sign transactions, getting used to having relays signing transactions, and then relays get lost, and then yada, yada, yada. I don't think this is going to happen. And especially if those people don't know how to use the blockchain, well, they wouldn't have been using it anyways, even if there weren't any relays. So basically, relays aren't hurting them. Decentralization stays the same. Now, what I'm trying to do here, this was all an introduction for what I think is the killer feature. Like, for 3 years now, I've been listening on Reddit and forums and everyone, like, what's the blockchain killer feature? What's gonna be the app that propels it from like a niche product used by geeks to a product that is used mainstream by people all over the world? Well, I think it's this, the gasless and anonymous stablecoin transactions. So basically what you want is, let's say if I were designing a money transfer system and blockchain didn't exist, and I was designing it and I wanted to do it as the best way I could do it. I would want the currency that I'm exchanging to be stable. This is something I would really want. I would like the process to be user-friendly, and I would like it to be anonymous. So basically, now with blockchains, everything is traceable. There is a case to be made that you need to have transactions auditable, because how else are you going to pay your taxes and prove everything? But with the technology I'm going to show, it is auditable post hoc. So you could actually do everything that the government says you should do. And basically, yeah. So I think these are the three features that you need to have: gasless, anonymous, and a stablecoin. Interesting thing, we can do this today on Ethereum. And this is what is so cool to me. It's still a little bit expensive, but it's gonna drop in price radically. In Ethereum, you have this MakerDAO DAI token, which is a stablecoin. You have also a plethora of other stablecoins. I think there were 56 or 60 stablecoins on Ethereum just last month. Maybe 5 have died this month, probably 5 will die next month. We'll see who will stay, but this is irrelevant. A stablecoin will be built because it's obvious that there's a demand for it. You want it to be user-friendly. We obviously are developing transaction relays. This is not beyond the technology, and there are already working transaction relays. And you want it to be anonymous, and this is where a very interesting project comes to mind. This is the Aztec protocol. They implemented the zero-knowledge proofs. If you know Monero, you know zero-knowledge proofs. They implemented it on Ethereum. They are currently funded by Consensus. I think they closed like a $2 million round. Yeah, they are in production today on Ethereum. It costs around 900,000 gas currently to do an anonymous transaction, but I believe that they have already found optimizations which will bring it down to 200,000 or 300,000. With more development, there will probably be more reductions. And also one thing that I forgot here, but this is important in the early stages, is a convenient fiat crypto gateway. And I believe that there is a way to kind of connect transaction relays and fiat crypto gateways into a single product, which then onboards people very easily onto the blockchain. That's the last slide. Okay. Yeah, very famous. I used to hold like an hour and a half long presentations with 2 slides. So yeah, but I can speak. Yeah, so basically, I think I said more or less. Yeah, this is why it's the last slide. I said everything I needed to say. If there's any questions now, yes.
So we build a financial system where we introduce gas and we remove anonymousless, and then we find a way to remove those 2 things, and then we think this is the killer feature. Like, so we create a system that's bad, and
yeah, basically, yeah,
we remove the thing that are making it bad, and now it's killer feature, but it's not better than fiat transactions.
Yeah, but it gets a little bit philosophical from here. It's a thing with most things as they develop, most technologies. They start off very decentralized, and this is the case with money. This is the case with a lot of things in human history, and then the force of convenience forces them to centralize. So this is one of the examples you can see is with the governance of the United States of America. They started off very decentralized, like states doing their own thing and counties doing their own thing. But then as they started to develop, they started to form a strong federal government and strong state governments. This is a natural progression of things. And I think what we did here is very good because we managed to find a way to use this optimized, centralized system because we had decentralized money, it was just cash, it's decentralized. But then we needed to do it internationally, quickly, then we developed centralized digital cash. And then we found a way to make the cash decentralized, but then it was a little bit worse in terms of usability than normal cash, and now we're finding ways to keep it decentralized and bring the usability on par with fiat.
I have a question about anonymity. So you say that we expect stuff to become anonymous in the future. Let's take, for example, Zcash. It uses zero-knowledge proofs, or Zk-Snarks. The problem is the default flag is turned off for anonymous transactions in Zcash.
Yes.
And only 10% of users are actually using anonymity, and the problem with that is if only 10% of people are using it,
You are correlation attacks.
Yeah, it doesn't work anyway. And in conjunction with AML policies and so on, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Coinbase just listed Zcash. They are not allowing anonymous transactions from the platform to the user.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think the good thing about zero-knowledge proofs is they are verifiable post hoc. So you can prove that you did a transaction, that you actually sent it to a certain address. And this is good because why are KYC AML procedures implemented? It's just they want people to pay taxes. Like this is for me it's clear as day. They don't want people not paying taxes. Everyone can have their opinion on this subject, but we are in a society which is used to people paying taxes on everything they do. So I think that there will be legal repercussions if you hide your transactions from the government when the police have a warrant, when the tax people come. But I think that the pseudonymous nature of blockchain is not enough for people. It's enough, especially for people playing around with blockchain. But for companies, it won't be enough. If you're a big company, you don't want to know that you just sent 5 million euros to this company that you started collaborating with, because it's not public knowledge. You want to publish it, in the end of financial year, so that you can have your reports and you can, keep doing your business the way you did it. So I think currently the problem is that we haven't gotten used to anonymous transactions. And that we don't have the legal framework to support them. And then the easiest thing to do is say, well, let's ban them. And as soon as there is legality to it, I think it will be very...
There is a subset of it, because now anonymous transactions are basically allowed, because Monero works.
Yes.
Zero.
Well, yes, they are allowed. They are allowed, but... the Monero community is a specific community, that they have their own agenda, and I think they're a great community. They're one of my favorite communities, but I don't think this is something that can work long term. Like if Monero was as large as Bitcoin, I think there would be issues. Because I think with most things in Bitcoin right now, the police aren't probing too much because they know they can trace the transactions, and they're okay with that. I don't believe that we're gonna ever have fully anonymous, hidden from government, completely cash, decentralized person is never visible. But I think you need to verify yourself on the entry points in certain snapshots. You don't need to verify yourself every single time. So it's not the problem that you don't want to hide yourself from the government. You want to hide yourself from your friends. So that's basically you don't want to know. You don't want your friends to know every single transaction you do. You don't want to have stalkers following you. If you're a company, you don't want to have competitors following you. But we have all, at a certain point, accepted that the government has the right to probe into our financials.
It says gasless in the title, so
yes.
I'm wondering how are they planning to achieve gasless transactions?
No, the gas is paid by the relay. So you pay a transaction fee. It's a tricky term. Shouldn't have used it probably. You pay the gas. You pay the gas in the token you are paying. So you don't have to have Ether ever. The relay takes your DAI or whatever token you have, and then charges you in DAI, and then they pay with Ether. So they take care of buying Ether on the stock market, on the crypto market, and doing all the complicated things. So I think there will be specialized companies. There already are becoming specialized companies who will do this for you, who will be doing the transaction relaying, real-time exchanging, and yeah.
It's like prepaid gas, basically.
Yeah, basically prepaid gas. Yeah, you sign the two transactions and they will get sent, and then yeah.
Have you heard of the approach to destroy ether by making it unnecessary, wherein relayers can collaborate with miners so that instead of sending to relayers, they actually dApps which are implementing better transactions can collaborate with miners so that they send their signed transaction directly to miners
Yes.
and not to relayers?
Yes, I have heard of that. I think cool if it's done. It seems like a very radical,
It's very
radical change in approach, and yeah, could work. Could work. I'm not, because then you would be kind of limited. It's the same with relays, but you know, if certain tokens have low liquidity, what do you do then? I think it's better to leave these things for layer 2. Like, this is something I think it's better done above the blockchain, because then, you know, I still think that there's something useful about the model where you produce a decreasingly inflating asset with every new block. Well, there's nothing particularly useful there. Okay.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
One
Tell
more.
us something more about DAI. Everyone's favorite coin is DAI. So what's so special about DAI?
Okay, well,
It's the best performing coin of this year.
Don't tell them.
I'll do it in like 2 minutes because it's off topic, but
It's always going to be $1, so
it's why I like it. I always loved the idea of a stablecoin. Unfortunately, a stablecoin is very difficult to produce, and I'm not as experienced in economics and game theory and everything to know how to produce a stablecoin. But I know enough about Ethereum development and about the Ethereum community and about these projects that I have trust in the MakerDAO developers. They have been doing this for a very long time. They have skipped any point where they could have made much more money than they needed. Because if they latched on to this craze of investments, I believe they could have, you know, gotten huge, absurd amounts of money. They decided to work with long-term investors. They have a very healthy ecosystem of websites and smart contracts, and yeah, if anyone's gonna make it, I think it's gonna be them. Not sure. This is not an advertisement. If you put your life savings into DAI and lose everything, don't blame me. But it's a product I think will work. Like, it's a stablecoin which I think will work, and it's decentralized. That's a cool thing, and it's collateralized by other assets, which I also think it's cool. And one day it will be collateralized by multiple assets, which I also think it's cool. So it has a couple of features which I like, and this is the reason why I think it's my favorite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we need a fully digital cash replacement?
Yes.
Why?
Because every market where there is a fully digital cash replacement doesn't even use cash anymore. So there's this interesting thing with China where they kind of skipped the whole credit card thing, debit card. Their infrastructure is far worse than any Western country, and then they leapfrogged into the 21st century with mobile apps, and then they got the WeChat app where they could send money. And yeah, basically nobody's using cash anymore, to the level where the government has to warn people and has to encourage them to use cash. They would have like posters, please use cash. Cash is cool. And you can see it with applications like my roommates and we never use cash in between ourselves. We have the Revolut app, and yeah, we basically just send ourselves the money through the Revolut. And a lot of people, a lot of my friends I know, they use the Venmo app. So as soon as you are not forced to use cash, I think you stop using it. Yeah.
Will the transactions be slower with the relays?
With?
With relays.
With relays, yeah, they won't be slower, but you will not have the guarantee of atomicity, which is something we kind of value. It will be a split process where you send it to the relay and then the relay sends it to the blockchain. So there's a small possibility that the relay will fail at the exact moment that they need to send your transaction, but it will be solved some. But basically, if they don't send it, nothing happens. You could just be stuck with somebody having your signed transaction, which is not an ideal case scenario.
With databases, you have this idea of a transaction. It's
Yes.
going to get really messy.
Okay.
Will we see transaction relay transactions so that we get that atomicity back?
Okay, this is where I'm not sure if we can have guarantees of atomicity. Not 100% sure. As far as we've been looking at implementing it in AmpNet, we just started. Just a disclaimer. We do not currently have guarantees of atomicity. We have a guarantee that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Not sure that I have to. That's.
Patching? That sounds messy.
Yeah, but you can do batching, but that
Oh,
doesn't
batching.
guarantee atomicity. Like it's just in a queue waiting for. Like if a relay goes dead forever, well then it's.
What do you do then?
Well, nothing. Like nothing happens. But you have potentially someone stuck with your signed transactions. It's not a big issue, but it's something.
But you wanted those transactions done anyways, but if they don't happen, you can just make a new one, right?
Yeah, you could always do it, but it's just basically one more step. And I don't think you could say it's atomic. You could say it's guaranteed to happen, but it's a split transaction.
More questions? Thank you, Mislav.